to mate handles and knobs to surfaces that are complex or don't have flat faces, you can mate using planes. So in this case, with the handle, I might find a plane, so like the top plane, and in the assembly, maybe the front plane here. And then I would click the mate command. Now it rotates the handle in place. I was assuming this was the front, so I could always click on this flip to flip the handle. But also we don't want it all the way in the back here, so I'm going to use instead of a coincident, which is the automatically assumed one, I'm going to use a distance mate. And it looks like it flipped back, so I'm just going to flip this again. And here I can type in a value of like how many inches away it is. And again, we can flip it to bring it forward. If we want to see kind of the position better, we can take a top view. So it looks like it needs to be maybe like what, 6 inches, maybe more, 7. Whoops. You can kind of dial it in to more or less where you want it. And yeah, then check that box. And so the handle's going to crash onto the body a little bit. You may need to resize things too. Like that's very possible depending on what your final design is. So it looks to me like maybe this handle needs to come in a bit on either side, or maybe it just needs to go longer. So what I would do then is I would open up the handle and do one of two things. Either change the surface cut so it's lower. So for example, we could either make a new surface or simply just suppressing this and seeing what happens there. That's probably the simpler solution. For the part line though, I would then just make sure we drag it further so it cuts through everything. So there we go. It looks like we may need to reselect some things that got lost in that command. So now with a longer handle back in the assembly, now it goes into the body. So those are some changes that one could make. Again, I might adjust it so it goes, maybe here the change is to the mate. So I can right click on this. There are mates in two places. They're at the bottom. They're also in a folder under the body or the part icon. But I can, like, for example, change this distance mate and just, take out 7.3 so that we don't see that corner there. Of course, the other fix would be to shrink the handle. So basically going into the master sketch and just changing this value to like 3.5 maybe. So now it's going to be an inch shorter. Hopefully it rebuilds. It does. And then back in the assembly. So that's the way you can kind of place it where you want it. So that's a distance mate. Now the height and the center needs to be fixed. So again, I would find like the center plane here and the central plane of your file. So it appears that this was built off center, which is not typical, but is okay. It happens sometimes. So in which case you can pick something else centered. So for the right plane, I would click on mates, and I'm assuming that this is a centered point on the file, so you can just click there. Sometimes, like if I build off center, I'll create a new plane within the part file that's centered, often based off the master sketch if possible. And then for this final, you can see there's like twisting. It's because it's mated to a point. That mate I just did was to this center point here. So it's kind of like twisting around that at the moment. To fix that, we're going to take this plane and mate it to the top plane. This is probably going to be another distance mate. So let's see, 0.5 inches. If it moves up, you just click the flip. And now it's been mated in 3 directions. This handle is fully mated, so it's good. The knob is a bit different because it kind of needs a place it needs sort of like a landing zone. So what I would do, in class I showed how to cut sort of like a home for the knob into the body. But other than cuts, you could also do extrudes. So I'm just gonna measure this. Alt plus M for measure brought up this tool. I was hoping to get the diameter, so I may have to open this part to get that measurement. Here it's probably in here. If I edit the sketch, I can get this value. So okay, so it's 0.7, so times 2 is 1.4. So what I would do then is in the griddle file, wherever you want the knob, maybe it's on the side, maybe it's on the front, depending on your design. I'll just put it on the side here. We want a home for the knob that's 1.4 inches in diameter. We can make sure it's sort of aligned with the origin and maybe place it where we want it located. So here, this way it doesn't interfere with the feet. And I noticed, you know, there's cuts in here. I don't want this to interfere with any of the hollow portions that are on the inside. So what I would do here is I would actually do an offset and have this start basically off of the off of the file. What was it? It was like 6. So, or sorry, not off of the file, off of the body. And then have it extrude back into itself. Again, this is just to avoid everything that's in the middle. I am noticing you built this in the middle. So it seems like when it was maybe imported into the assembly file, I'll look at that in a minute. I'll address what I just realized in a minute here. Yeah, so now we have a home here. It's kind of like a bezel, like built onto the griddle file. I would probably throw a fillet on there, again, to whatever design. And then back to the assembly. It's asking to update. Now here is where we can like select this face and select this face. So here again, we're selecting the object first. Now we're selecting the command. And again, SOLIDWORKS makes an assumption to make it coincident. Maybe that's what we want. It would maybe have been helpful to have cut a hole here, because then we can center this into that. I'm going to see if I can select this circle and this circle. No, this edge. Yeah, that seemed to work because it's a curved edge, and it made it coincident, or concentric rather. So yeah, now we have a home. So sometimes you need to like build things to have space for them. I mean, you could also use the same technique for the handle if you knew the exact spacing. That's a little bit more tricky. But that is essentially mating complex shapes. So what I was talking about before about centering an object. So here typically the front plane, like when you bring in the first part, all of the planes should align. So if I create a new assembly here, and I'm going to just start by selecting the griddle, and I'm just going to check this box. Now, by doing that step, now these planes automatically align, as opposed to clicking the placement. And so that's important because now we have like a centered plane here, which would have helped centering the handle before, as opposed to clicking this point here. As far as build efficiency goes, it's pretty good. In general, you want the mirror to happen as far down as possible. So, you know, you could, for example, fill this in, or sorry, as far down the tree as possible. But I can also understand mirroring it here because you kind of want to see what it looks like. I don't know. I can understand this first one. I might build this in half, so like fill in the center. There are other like slight inefficiencies, like let's see here. This all makes sense. Like this, for example, this could be part of the sweep, this top body, right? If you get this, if you have your shape from the side planned ahead. Even this could have been part of the sweep, but then this would have had to been a thin cut command. So I mean, yeah. Let's see. So far though, that's like nitpicking. So far though, everything I think is pretty efficient. Here is where it does start to get inefficient. This cut command, you can cut through multiple bodies, so you could also include these two, for example. And I think that would yeah, by doing that. So what I did is I entered this command and I just selected the two central bodies as well. That means that these two cut commands are then redundant and not necessary. So basically, like, can you, with one command, can you do something that two others are doing? I'm also not quite sure what these are. I don't know if they're supposed to be cast iron and you just want to have it come all the way to the edge, which is cool. Maybe that's the intent, and I think that'll look good. But yeah, there you have it.